If you don't have something to live for, your body stops eventually fighting to live. I just want to say that again. So, if you don't have something to live for, your body eventually stops fighting to live. Today, I'm super excited for you to be joining for the Live Younger, Longer podcast. This is a very important thing because it's something anybody can do. It doesn't cost any money. You don't have to have some special equipment, but it's something vitally important to your longevity. And so, what I wanted to talk about today is, what if the greatest longevity strategy that maybe you're overlooking in your life, it maybe it isn't a supplement, it's not a peptide, it's not even a new recovery protocol. What if it's just vision for your life? Have you ever really thought about how important it is to have vision? Scripture tells us in Proverbs 29:18 that where there is no vision, people perish, right? The people will perish where there's no vision. We usually interpret that as just spiritually, but what if the verse is also honestly biological? Because if you don't have a clear, compelling future, our nervous system literally will shift into survival mode. Our cortisol levels will rise, inflammation actually increases, your motivation drops. You don't thrive through life. You just endure through it. But when you have vision, when you can see where you're going, you have a clear vision for your future, your brain literally shifts into possibility. Dopamine actually increases. Your stress, it becomes productive. Your body organizes itself around a future that you believe in. You can actually shift the way your body is biologically functioning. And today we're going to talk about why clarity of vision may be one of the most powerful anti-aging tools available to you, and why living quietly, or honestly without living, it quietly accelerates decay. Have you ever really thought about how that is, and why that is, and how we can get to this point of how we can shift by something as simple as having a clear vision for your life can literally help shift the way your body is aging? Most people don't think about that because most people don't think about what their vision is. Have you ever thought about what, again, I've done some of these podcasts on purpose, on gratitude, certain easy things that any of us can do in our day-to-day lives. We just have to implement them into our day-to-day. But something as simple as vision, have you thought about what your life looks like at 95 years old? Have you honestly really thought about what it would be like to literally be, on the porch in your ranch, or on your lake house, or up in the mountains somewhere, holding your wife's hand, not only seeing your kids thriving, but your kids' kids, or maybe your great grandchildren all around you, thanking you for what you've done through this life and the life that you have given them? Have you ever really thought about having that clear vision for your life? And as we talk about this, I'm going to talk about how, like, it literally goes into a biological response, and how we cannot decay through life, how we cannot accelerate aging because we have no vision, but actually how we can de-accelerate aging as we go through it. So think about your nervous system, right? Your nervous system is constantly asking one question: am I safe, or am I surviving? That's what our nervous system is really doing. Am I safe? Right? And when we feel safe, how do we feel, right? If maybe your safe space is hugging your wife. And man, when you come home from a late night, or maybe that is for your wife with your husband, and you just give them that embrace, right? You just hug on them and love on them, where they just feel safe. What happens to that biological response, right? Our nervous system settles down, right? We're safe, we're secure. Dopamine actually rises, cortisol actually lowers, right? Because it's safe. So when you lack vision, your brain literally defaults into uncertainty. Right? If you don't know where you're going, if you don't have vision for your life, your brain just automatically defaults to uncertainty, and uncertainty feels like danger to our nervous system. But when we have long-term vision, a mission bigger than your current circumstances, right? Your nervous system, it interprets it differently. It becomes a challenge and not a threat. right? It moves you into action because you know where that end game is going. Stress is actually a tool. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It moves you and drives you into purpose, because if you know where you're going and what your vision is, right, for your in life, you're going to do the uncomfortable things you don't want to do, right? Many people talk about maybe starting a podcast or starting a business or talking to that next client or doing these things, and they go into this fear mode where they don't do the things. When you talk about just success in life, there's no secret to it. Most successful people are just willing to do the things that other people aren't willing to do. Right. I've been in the network marketing industry for well over in the industry over 20 years, with our current company over 16 years. Why are some people successful in this industry, which I believe is the greatest entrepreneurial opportunity for anybody, because it literally strips out all barriers of entry for anybody. You don't need capital, you don't need credit, you don't need all these educations, you don't need certifications, you don't need anything. You have to have a desire and a willingness to want to change your life. So why are some people successful in that industry and others not? Number one, most people that are successful have a clear vision of what they're intending to create. I didn't say want to create. I intentionally use the word intended to create, and they're willing to do what other people aren't willing to do. But it's a business like any other business. When I started my traditional small business, I was willing to do something that most people weren't wanting to do. I put a push mower, a weed eater, and a blower in my truck, and I started talking to people. I started creating a client list. I was willing to go into businesses and ask them if they needed lawn and landscape services. I was willing to do it. Now, I live in Southeast Texas. It's freaking hot, right? And in the summertime, it's 100 degrees with 90% humidity. But I was willing to do what others weren't willing to do, because I had a vision of a future for my family that I wanted to create. And I knew working my normal job at AT&T at a capped salary wasn't going to get me where I wanted to go. I had a clear vision of what I wanted to create, and it wasn't quick. When I say I push mode things, I literally push mode it. I did not have a self-propelled mower. I didn't have any of that stuff. But I had desire and I had vision. That's what I had. And it took about 4 years to really start creating some pretty significant income. And then by, year 6 or 7, we're pulling $250,000, $300,000 a year. Now, was it easy? Hell no, it wasn't easy. But was it worth it? Did it allow me to retire from AT&T at 32 and then be able to create a lifestyle for my family that I desired? Absolutely. Now, why did I shift then into network marketing? I had an established business. Why did I want to shift? Because I wanted recurring income. I wanted residual income. I wanted time back, because our traditional businesses owned my life, and I wanted to create some real time independence in my life. And that's what we were willing to do. I was willing to do what others wouldn't, but it all started because I had clear vision in my life. And because of that vision, I was able to keep a lot of things biologically under control. So again, vision, it regulates your nervous system because it creates direction, right? Most people, again, I went through this on a podcast a few weeks ago, but just purpose and vision for your life, it gives direction. And most people are out there floundering, looking for purpose, looking for all these things, looking for direction in their life because they don't have any. So then that's where they just glob on to whatever the media is telling them that's important for this day. Right? And again, I've said this, but it's amazing how these same protesters, they just go from one thing to be pissed off about to the next, to the next, to the next. It's amazing. Why? Because they have no vision or direction for their life. They have no purpose. They're looking for a facade, something that gives them the sense of purpose, but it's not real purpose for what God created them to be. That's what it is. So think about this. Chronic ambiguity, it creates chronic cortisol, right? If you don't know where you're going, if you're guessing, if you're just like a ship in the sea with no rudder, no sail, no nothing. You're just being tossed around by the winds of life. It creates chronic cortisol. Now, is that healthy? Heck no, it's not healthy, right? We know stress is a silent killer. Now, stress can be beneficial, But if you don't know where you're going, it actually can be working against you, right? Chronic cortisol accelerates aging. We all know this, right? So if you want to de-accelerate aging, you got to get your stress to be useful and not harmful to you. Right, clear purpose. It increases resilience, and it increases your dopamine regulation. Why are so many people just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling on social media and doing the different things? Number one, they don't have any vision in their life. Number two, they're looking for those dopamine hits. You can create dopamine hits in your life. Right? If you have vision for your life and you have some goals that you're going, even if it's a small goal that you actually accomplished, you need to give yourself a moment for that win and like accept it, right? Create your own dopamine. Hope is a biological state, not just an emotional state. Having hope for your future, having direction, having vision for your future, right? It literally is a biological state that you can create. But again, most people are just floundering through life because they never think about it. Why do most people not write down goals, right? They it's a fear that they won't do it, right? They'll fail. So they don't even do it. Now, if you don't have any goals, you don't have any vision, you don't have any purpose for your life, does that create harmful stress going on in your life because you don't know where you're going? Right? Or are you using some of these tools to be able to accelerate? And this actually came across because I was with a friend of mine from Russia over the weekend. We spent some time together in Africa, actually on a mission trip last year. And he asked me to speak to his audience. And one of his points was, or how this kind of came about for this week's episode was, he was saying, why do people, as they get older, why do their dreams shrink? Why does their vision shrink as people get older? Right. And my point in talking to his audience was it should be getting bigger, right? Because after every failure, you learned a lot of lessons on what not to do. Failure is not a bad thing. It's the greatest education tool out there. I've made hundreds of business mistakes in my life that cost us tens of thousands of dollars. But I learned along the way what not to do. So every time I experienced a failure, okay, maybe I started here and I kind of went up, but I failed, and maybe I dropped here. Now my new starting point's here. And then as I go, right, I'm always starting from a better spot because I have now knowledge, I have education, I have experience. And so our vision should be growing as we get older. My vision at 50 years old is bigger than ever. I'm writing down bigger goals than I've ever written down in my life at 50. Now, did I have blind optimism in my 20s when I first started my first small business? 100%. But I didn't have knowledge, I didn't have experience, I didn't have any of that stuff. It was just blind optimism. Now, I could have let those failures shrink my vision and say, man, business is too hard, network marketing is too hard, all these things are too hard. I'm just going to go get a job because it's safe, it's guaranteed money as long as you don't get laid off or replaced by technology, right? Like all these things. But kind of going through this, you have to have those clear visions in your life. And I love how really scripture lays it out. Again, in Proverbs, it tells us where there is no vision, people perish. I look at that sometimes as that word perish as talking about what my friend was asking me. Why do dreams shrink as people get older? Right? It's because their vision, they had no vision. So their dreams, their goals, they perished. Right? Habakkuk tells us in second book of or chapter of Habakkuk, where it talks in 2:3, write down the vision, right? Write it down and make it plain. You got to think about why literally writing it down, there's clarity that wires in your brain, right? When written goals activate different neural pathways than just vague desires. Every day I wake up in the morning and I'm writing my goals out. I'm literally writing things that I intend to see happen in my life. I'm looking at these things. I'm writing it down. I want to create new neural pathways in my brain where it doesn't seem impossible. Some of the goals I originally started writing down, I don't know how they will be accomplished. But I'm not worried about the how because I'm doing the what. I'm doing what I know I need to do on a daily basis that compound effect, the how will work itself out. Most of us get so stressed about it because we think we need to know every single, you know, twist and turn that's going to happen in our lives. And if we don't know exactly how something's going to work out, we don't even try it. You'll never know the how. There's just a tip, pro tip from Jason. You'll never know the how. Every success in our life, every business growth we've had, sometimes some exponential growth we had, especially like through COVID areas and stuff like that, we had exponential growth in our business. Did I know how that was going to happen? Could I have predicted COVID? Heck no. But 2020, 2021 was magical financially because I had a vision. I had purpose of my purpose during that time was to help people at home create money, help people get their health back, right? Live in a healthy state and help people navigate this stressful period in their life. I had purpose. I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve them. And by doing that, right, the how worked itself out. You know, you think about it in Romans, it says, be transformed by the renewing of the mind, right? Renewed thinking creates new neural pathways. It creates new psychological outcomes. As you're renewing your mind, as you're writing this stuff down, as you have a clear vision for your life, that's where these things happen. But if you're not doing these things, and this, again, you need a pen and a paper. You have to have the willingness and desire to think and to know that you can do things and create the outcome that you want. You're not stuck. You don't have to be in the situation of life, but most of you guys are because, again, you don't have any vision for your life. Think about Hebrews, it says, for the joy set before him, he endured, right? Future vision increases present endurance. I'm willing to go through the hard right now because I know what the outcome I'm intending to create is going to be. So that future vision increases my present endurance. And that's where you get into nervous system mastery, right? Where you can really get into this. But again, if you don't have future vision, is your present endurance, is it going to sustain? Are you going to have it? Are you willing to do all these things that most people aren't willing to do? Are you willing to go through the hard? Ask any successful entrepreneur you know about their journey. No one started a business and was successful like that. Nobody. I don't care who you're talking to. They've all had major, major times in their life where they're questioning, is it worth it? Should I be doing this? Why am I doing this? What kept that endurance going was the vision they had for what they wanted to create. Right? So your biology always follows your belief about the future. I want that to sink in because your biology, your body, the nervous system in you, your brain, your belief, right? Your biology follows your belief about the future. So think about that because most people, again, if you don't have that, if you don't have belief for your future, if you don't have vision for your future, if you don't have these things, if you don't have purpose in your life, right? Where's your belief? And again, guys, all this stuff I'm telling you today is free. You don't have to buy some course. You don't have to do it. It's simple little things. It's creating new habits in your life to create new beliefs of what's possible. Trust me, guys. Again, I've shared my story a little bit, but you know, my wife and I started dating as freshmen in high school at 15. We got married at 20, dead ass broke. We had nothing. And in the midst of all this chaos, we're dealing with family members that had substance abuse issues and all kind of stuff that honestly young 20-year-old couples shouldn't have to deal with. And it created a lot of extra stresses in our life and a lot of extra things in our life. But we always had a vision. I remember telling my wife when we were making nothing. I mean, I think I was making like $835 working for City of Beaumont. She was working for Dillard's, probably making about the same. And I remember looking at her and saying, honey, we're going to be millionaires one day. What was her belief? It was literally almost a pat on the head saying, that's cute, right? That's awesome. Go get it. Go get it, Tiger. But I always had a belief for success. I always knew it was ingrained in me that no one was gonna hand you anything, but if you're willing to work hard, you can create anything. And so again, your biology follows your belief about the future. So if you wanna live longer, don't just optimize your labs, guys, optimize your vision that you have for your life. That's what you really need to get clarity on. That's where you really need to get to a point where you're what you're optimizing is the vision you have for the future that you want to create. Again, I believe if you have that vision in you, if you have those dreams, those goals in you, God has given you everything you need. Now, again, if you think about how God can prepare you for that sometimes, when we're going through some of those hardships in life, right? It's preparation for where we're going. Again, the man I am at 50 is completely different than who I was at 30, completely different who I was at 20. And some of those hardest times that we ever had in our life, it was really about it was preparation for where I was going, uh, creating the right mindset that, hey, it might be hard now, but it's not going to be hard forever. Right? Knowing that I can persevere through hard things, having the belief. I don't live a what if lifestyle. I don't stress about the what ifs. Right? And that's where me and my wife are completely different. She stressed about what ifs. Why stress about something you have no control over? Or why stress about things that haven't even happened yet? Right? I don't worry about that. And then if something happens, if a life event happens, okay, it happened. You can't go back and change it. It happened. So why stress about, again, something you have no control over? You have to get to this. So think about some of these things. Again, if you want to live longer, if you want to live younger longer, right? Don't just optimize, again, your labs, optimize your future. Really start thinking about your future because a body without a future begins to shut down, right? And a person with a mission, you become alive. Right? I started this podcast because I have a mission to help people live younger longer. I have a mission that I want to help people get as much life out of every year they have. Right? I have a mission to want to help people grow financially, spiritually, uh, nutritionally. Right? That's my mission. That's my goal. And so it that made me become alive. That's why I started this platform. Because I wanted to create a community of like-minded people like that share morals and values and a mission, right? To get as much out of this life while we're here, right? Until God calls us home. And at the end of my day, I know I want to have an impact on people's lives. And I want to, at the end of the day, hear those beautiful words from my Savior saying, well done, good and faithful servant. You did good with the talents I given you. Right? That's my mission. That's what I really want to do. So, I especially love talking with high performers. And I believe anybody can become a high performer. But many of them are successful, but they're drifting right now. I run across this all the time with some of my coaching clients. They're just drifting. They're drifting through life. So, I want to ask a couple questions. Number one, what is pulling you forward? Like, what's making you get out of bed and challenging you to do things that you don't really want to do? What is that? What is really pulling you forward? And again, I kind of mentioned this briefly a minute ago, but if you live to 95, who are you becoming? Have you ever sat down and wrote your own obituary about your life? Have you ever thought about being 95 and who that person is at 95? What you've created, the lifestyle you created, the family you created, the impact and difference you made in people's lives. Have you ever thought about that? Who are you becoming? And then what is your nervous system organizing around? Is it an iconic, or honestly chronic nervousness and uncertainty, or is it in that safe mode? Like, what is it really optimizing around? Because, so again, stress can be a useful tool. I talk about this device right here all the time. I have stress in my life because as we're launching this technology into the marketplace, helping people optimize their nutrition, really getting a good nutritional score and solutions to help them improve their lives. There's stress. We're in the middle of launching this into the marketplace. People are going to capture market share. Is that challenging me every day to get up and do things I don't necessarily want to do? Absolutely. Is stress a useful tool for the vision I have for this technology being launched in the marketplace? Absolutely. Right? It's useful. So I'm optimizing my nervous system and organizing it around good stress because I have a clear vision of what I want my life to look like by 2030. I write it down every day. I really think about that. I really think about the directions that we have and the different aspects that we have during this life. I really have vision for really what I'm looking for in the things that I'm wanting to create because of the things that I want to leave to my 3 boys and to their children and to their children, right? That's where my vision goes. Not only my immediate needs, but also my kids' kids, and their kids, right? Like, I wanna see all that. So again, as we close, I just want you to really think about some of the things that we had talked about today. Excuse me, and really start optimizing the vision that you have around your life. I want you to get clear and get clarity around that vision that you have for your life. I want you to really start thinking in a different term of, again, what you're looking to create, what you're intending to create. Maybe sit down with your spouse and really start thinking about it. What do we want the next 5 years to look like, the next 10, the next 50 years to look like? Like I said, I just turned 50, and I tell people all the time, I'm almost middle aged, right? Like, that's where my vision goes. And I want to be living like I am today at 80, at 90 years old, full of life, full of energy, just ready to rock and roll, right? If there's an opportunity, go take it, right? If there's something fun to do, go get it, right? That's where I'm really looking. So again, Proverbs tells us where there is no vision, people perish. And again, you start shutting down. It's not just spiritually, guys. It's emotionally, right? You really got to think about that. It again, it creates and it changes the biology of our body just by having clear vision for what you want out of your life. So if you lose sight of where you're going, honestly, your body feels it. And again, your nervous system literally shifts into survival mode. It really gets there. Stress, honestly, it becomes chronic inflammation. Is that good for your body? Heck no. Your chronic inflammation rises I mean, honestly, just your chronic stress rises, which causes your inflammation to rise. And then what where we really get down to where people perish is when that happens, hope shrinks. Your hope for the future shrinks. I think that's why there's so much pessimism right now with some of the people in our society because their hope has shrunk. I believe we're living in the greatest day of our lives. I believe there's more opportunity now than ever before. My optimism is at a 300 for where we are in our country and our opportunities and financial opportunities and every aspect. I believe we're living in the greatest time in history and the greatest country in history. But why do some people have where their hope for their future, it has shrunk down to almost nothing? Why is that? Because they don't have any vision for their future. They don't even know where they're going or what they even want. When you really think about how scripture tells us something in Proverbs 17:22, a joyful heart is good medicine. When my wife is down or if she's not feeling good or whatever, I do anything I can to make her laugh. I say laughter's medicine, right? A joyful heart is good medicine. It heals our body, right? But joy is not random. It's rooted in gratitude. And that's why I did that whole episode about gratitude and the power of gratitude and what it does to our body to be grateful. But honestly, gratitude is anchored in vision. It's anchored in vision. I was so grateful that my wife and I was able to spend a week in Vegas, and we were averaging 25 plus thousand steps a day. Like, we were walking and being able to go and super active. I'm so grateful that my body functions the way it does at the age that I am, because honestly, we walked around and saw so many people that weren't able to do that. It was sad. So when you can see where God is taking you, right? When you believe that your future is still unfolding, that your greatest day hasn't gotten here yet, right? When you can see and know that your future is still unfolding, that's when you wake up just thankful for the breath in your lungs. You ever just thought about how grateful you are that you can breathe, that you can see, right? That you have a spouse that loves you, that you got purpose in your bones? Just being grateful for sometimes for the little things in life. So grateful that I have a house, somewhere to sleep. I'm so grateful for the things that are going on. And when you do that, your nervous system settles, right? Your body shifts again out of that survival mode, and it really turns healing back on, right? If you need some healing in your body, start with gratitude, start with vision. Get your body out of that chronic survival mode that you're living in and really get into gratitude. Because again, your future's still unfolding. Now, science confirms honestly what scripture declares to us thousands of years ago. Gratitude lowers stress hormones in your body. It improves your heart rate variability. It reduces inflammation, and it even strengthens your immune response, right? All these things happen because of gratitude. Well, if you're not grateful for where you are, how can you be grateful for where you're going? If you have no vision for where you're going, how can you be grateful for the path you're on right now? Right? I look at challenges as opportunities, right? When bad things happen in life, I'm like, what an opportunity. What do I get to learn out of this? Where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I going through this? What's the lesson here? It's such a great opportunity, right? In other words, gratitude literally can add years to your life. Right? That's the whole point of this podcast. Live younger, longer, right? It can add gratitude. Something as simple as gratitude can add years to your life. You know, Psalms 92 says, it is good to give thanks to the Lord. They will still bear fruit in their old age. They will stay fresh and green. Right? It's good to give thanks. So as we age, we're still bearing fruit throughout our lives. Right? We're getting to this point. You know, fresh and green in old age. That's what I want to look like. I want to be fresh and green, baby. Like I said, I want to be able to do what we did last week in Vegas when I'm 90, walking around, having fun, flirting with my wife, right? That's what I want, man. A long, youthful life. That longevity language, guys, it's everything. Having vision for your life, knowing where you're going, having purpose. Again, that's why I've done these last 3 episodes about purpose, about gratitude, and now vision. Having vision in your life, because vision gives you direction, gratitude gives you regulation, and together it creates resilience. You're willing to do things that most people aren't willing to do, right? It creates resilience in your life to go through the hard and embrace the hard. Embrace it. I laugh at people when they say network marketing is hard. I'm like, no, mowing 8 to 12 lawn accounts a day in the Southeast Texas heat is hard. That's hard. Right? Digging ditches is hard. There's a lot of things that are hard, right? But going out and building a network, building a community, is that hard? Let's have some perspective here. But it creates resilience no matter what you're doing. So if you want to extend your life, don't just chase, optimization protocols out there. Write the vision, make it plain, have a clear, a very concise vision for your life. See it. It should create an emotional response. When I think about the future for me and my wife, it creates emotional responses of the life I want to create with her. Right? It has to be plain. That's why it talks about in Habakkuk, write it down and make it plain. Have a clear vision. Don't be all over the place with it. Don't be vague with it. right? Really get out there, make it plain, and practice daily gratitude for the future you haven't seen yet, right? Be grateful for this future that's coming that you might not see in the present, but it's coming because your biology always follows your belief. And a grateful heart with clear vision doesn't just live longer, it lives stronger. So, again, I started with this and I want to end with it. If you don't have something to live for, your body eventually stops fighting to live. And we've all seen it with people. I saw it with my mom. When she passed away in August, I knew she was ready to go. My dad had passed away back in 2014, and she lived a good another 10, 11 years without him. They were married for a very long time. And I knew there were times where she was lonely. She was just ready to go. She was ready to be reunited with him in heaven. And when she suffered a pretty bad fall and hit her head pretty bad, you have to have something that you want to live for, or your body eventually stops fighting to live. We knew that she was ready. She had expressed that to us. And so there was no point in us trying to do a million things just to keep her breathing, technically alive. But if she had that want or fight to want to live a little longer, it makes a huge difference. We've all seen this in hospitals. When people are ready to go, they're ready to go. So if you don't have something to live for, then your body it eventually stops fighting to live. And so that's where I want to challenge you to get a clear vision for your life. Right? Really see where you're wanting to go. See the things that you're intending to create. And have it clear, write it down, make it plain. With that, guys, I appreciate it. If this is of value to you, please like and subscribe it. Leave me your comments. Help grow the community, guys. And because that's what we're all about, and we're just getting started. It's going to be an amazing ride. Appreciate your time today. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next week.